Hi, Darren Mangum here, securities lawyer, Mangum and Associates. Thanks for tuning in today. Wanted to jump on YouTube and talk about Nikola founder Trevor Milton's recent conviction of securities fraud by a federal court. Big deal. We've been following this case for a long time. We have an office in Salt Lake City or in Utah. Pretty crazy case. If you haven't been following, I'll put a link to this case in the show notes below. But this is another example of an entrepreneur. Again, I'm not sitting here. I'm not trying to cast stones at Trevor or shame him in any way. But this is certainly an example, whether he intended to initially or not. It's an easy example of where entrepreneurs can often find themselves behind the eight ball if they start saying things that aren't really true or that are materially misleading in any way. I mean, this case, from what's come out in the trial, it kind of definitely, instead of being overly optimistic, painting, blue skies and a rosy future for the company, which most entrepreneurs do, right? They try to put their best foot forward. They try to, I think the mantra, fake it till you make it, is one that's common in a lot of startup situations where, you see companies, like Peloton was one of those, right? Where, they hadn't really nailed their prototype yet, and they were obviously trying to attract investor capital. So, they're trying to cut corners and try to get a working prototype up so they can impress people. It's easy, especially when it comes to the securities laws, to find yourself in a heap of trouble. In this case, not just a civil fraud claim, but in this case, a criminal law claim, especially if it's if it rises to the level of not only materially misleading or false statements, but also either intent to defraud or reckless intent to defraud, certainly could rise to the level of criminal intent, right? And so here, Trevor, I'll let you read the story, but the Wall Street Journal does a great job in outlining the story. They also have a podcast that Bad Bets. If you haven't subscribed to that podcast, it's a great podcast. They cover the Enron story. They cover a number of crazy stories where people were able to raise millions and millions of dollars in capital by promising investors, and then at the end of the day, none of it turned out to be true. And so most of our clients don't fall into that category where they're just outright defrauding investors. But in this case, Trevor Milton was obviously trying to, he had a grand vision of this truck that was going to revolutionize trucking, having a clean, hydrogen-powered vehicle that didn't put off any emissions. They kept saying, all it puts off is water, zero carbon impact, which would be pretty amazing. And everybody sort of bought into it. And at the end of the day, it was just a nice looking truck on the outside, nothing under the hood, that they rolled down the hill and shot it on video, telling investors, "Wow, look at it go!" And it's just gravity is pulling this truck down the hill. What's surprising is how long they were able to keep that story going without, lots of people, a lot of engineers that worked at the company, a lot of investors, like early stage investors. They knew for a while that a lot of those claims were really not true, but it's amazing how much, like, somebody that's a really heavy promoter and that has attracted the smartest people in the room, a lot of outside venture capital, sort of ignored the warning signs and didn't really do the due diligence. And it wasn't really until Hindenburg Research, did the hard investigation, and they came out and publicly said, hey, this thing is not true, and it's a sham. And then that's when everybody said, what? Oh, this is after, again, huge $1 billion market capitalization. I think at one point Nikola was valued greater than Ford and General Motors, and they had not yet even produced an actual. I mean, they supposedly had created the prototype, but they hadn't even produced the first actual commercial truck yet, and started selling trucks and started making money. Crazy what can happen in an exuberant market. A lot of people ignore the warning signs. But anyway, unfortunately, for a lot of those investors, they're going to probably come out as losers. I think this is an example of where, again, I don't know where Trevor's mind was at the time. I mean, maybe at some point he kind of convinced himself that he really was going to try to pull this off. But when you are, sort of, putting, you're not giving full disclosure and saying, hey, this is still our vision. I mean, it's okay to talk about your vision. It's okay to talk about what you plan to do to conquer the world. But yeah, at the same time, you need to balance that with fair disclosure of information. And obviously that's what disclosure documents are supposed to do, like a private placement memorandum, like a prospectus. It's supposed to lay out, hey, these are risks involved, and hey, we really haven't figured this out yet. And so if you want to keep investing with us on that basis, great. But I think he definitely crossed the line at some point. And anyway, I hate seeing that happen to anybody. But man, it just got seems like it got away from him. I mean, I guess other people probably have stronger words to say, but anyway, interesting case, very interesting, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you are in the tech space. I think this is a great example of where you need to sort of say, hey, I need to balance what I'm kind of promising and promoting by obviously making sure that I'm not misleading the investor. And whether it's, again, whether you're doing a pitch deck or a road show or whatever that is, that certainly, whatever those statements are, need to be balanced through it with disclaimers, with risk factors by, hey, look, this is not, and a lot of people, unfortunately, in Nikola, that company, they put their life savings into the company and borrowed money to put into the company. So kind of a sad story all around there. But anyway, fascinating case. I'll put a link to this Wall Street Journal article in the description. But anyway, if you're an entrepreneur, you're raising capital, our job as securities lawyers is to make sure you're doing it right, not jumping out without a parachute or jumping out into battle without some shield or armor. We're obviously there to help with that. So anyway, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. And if you like it, please subscribe and share it with your friends. And we'll see you on the next video. Thank you.